Hello and welcome back to AI Deconstructed series, our flagship AI series here at Deep Funding. And it's really good to be with you here again on our biweekly X Spaces. I'm your host, Miriam McQuarrie, and I'm really glad that I get to be with you all tonight from, all the parts of the world that you're joining us from today. We took some time away, as you might have noticed. We had a huge loss in our community, and we had to take our time to grieve a little. Right, grief is an interesting experience, and in many ways, I always say that in many ways, grief really is just grief. And as a community, we just thought to take um, some time to honor the man that we had lost, Rama Zamaleto, who was with us for episode 6 of AI Deconstructed, and this is episode 8. So it really was a shocking loss for all of us. But, life, has reminded us that some things matter more than deadlines and content calendars and schedules. And so just very important for us to just take out the time to just grieve a little. All right. But we are back now. And honestly, I think this is such a great conversation to return with. This particular conversation really feels right because if there's anything worth talking about, truly, after taking our time to reflect on, life itself and all the things that matter, it's that. Why do some ideas capture hearts and minds while others, no matter how brilliant, fade into obscurity and oblivion, as it may. And throughout this series, you'd find that we've explored decentralized AI from every angle: the technical architecture, the governance models, the community dynamics. Yeah, we had such an interesting conversation on that, real world deployment challenges, the user experience that builds trust. We've spoken to engineers, we've spoken to designers, all the way from Roho Kaboti to Haley Lawi and Dr. Esther Galfini, Peter Elmfrink, Greg, and sadly for one last time, Rama Zamaleto. And yeah, we've talked to everyone, right? We've talked to the best of the best in this field, but today we just thought that it was important to also really address something that sits underneath all of the fascinating topics that we've uncovered, something that determines whether any of it actually reaches the people it's meant to serve. A few weeks ago, I can't remember who now, had tweeted storytelling as a service is, like the next big thing. And it was such an interesting discourse to read through because there are people of the opinion that since when storytelling is it's been here, right? It's been everywhere. Or yes, people need to get on the board of storytelling. People need to learn about storytelling. I'm telling you, we're going to be paying so much now for people who really can capture stories well and tell stories well. And well, I was of the opinion that since when storytelling has been the core of legacy building for many businesses, right? We stay loyal to certain brands because of the stories that they've built over time, they've told over time, they've helped us connect with over time. And I read the tweet and I just thought, yeah, really, it's when it's not just a service, it's basically our way of life. I'm Nigerian, and storytelling for us is something so daily and important and practical, and you'd find that all the many of the principles and the values we live our lives by where we got through stories, right? So we as a child, I remember that in the evenings when my mom did not have so much work to do, would sit out. I lived in a big compound, luckily, so would sit out and watch the stars. And we go, oh, mommy, tell us a story. And it was very fascinating stories. There were the tortoise and the hare, stories from her university days, stories from her childhood, stories from being in the village, growing up as Igbo Yoruba. Those are the tribes that she was from, stories of Lagos, Nigeria. And you'd find that I have found that many of my values and the way I live my life were based on the stories that I was told, right? How to be prudent with money, how to be prudent with speech, um, how to be kind, how to be good, how to practice justice, stuff like that. And even if you want to go in the religion route, there's also, Bible stories and stories from religion, stories from Buddha, stories from, whatever religion is it that you practice that basically just keeps you centered a- and rooted, right? So, yeah, stories are really so powerful. And I have seen, I'm sure all of you might have seen how people would create brilliant apps, great software, beautiful tech, but then they're not doing as great as the other guy who is just telling a better story. And those were just my thoughts when I had, written down why the best technology loses to the best story as our topic for today. I wanted us to really explore this uncomfortable truth that, technical people, myself included, well, sometimes, often resist that you can build the most sophisticated, elegant, transformative technology in the world, but if you can't tell people why it matters in a way that resonates with them, in a way they can understand, you will lose to somebody with inferior tech and a better story every single time. Every single time. It works in, in the little things. It's even so, it doesn't even have to be technology based, right? Because somebody knows how to tell a better story about her life or her product or her business. You go to her shop or her store versus this person's own who doesn't even bother, even if the person has better aesthetics, better aisles and better shelves and better music, better ambience as well. You go to the other person, it might not be looking as great, but the story there, the loyalty there is just more for you. You see, you've heard, you understand why this person's product is worth your money, right? And yeah, like I said, we've seen it a lot. And in decentralized AI, where you can't force adoption through massive marketing budgets or established brand recognition, where you're asking people to trust systems without central authorities, where you're doing something that we've not really known as culture or as tradition. And it's a space where you're building movements rather than products. You want people to rally around your ecosystem and your blockchain and your community. You want people to give their time. In many times that's not even as well paid as another person's ecosystem, or it's a volunteer system. People are just giving their time to you and they're not getting any reward, or there's a way the reward is not so beneficial now, it could be in 10 years, stuff like that. But so I said all of that to say this: in decentralized AI, storytelling is not just nice to have. Really, it is your entire competitive advantage. And today we are all here with a storyteller, right? Because I mean, who better else? A storyteller, Dr. Ayo, who is principal partner at the Dr. Ayo company, a media marketing and branding consultancy. And what makes him uniquely qualified for this conversation is skill and impact. If you check his Twitter bio, I think there's something about wisdom brand and the storyteller. And I always used to think that that was really, really important, right? Uh, those of us here at Deep Funding would know that uh, Dr. Ayo, or that Ayo, as we call him in the event circle, has a YouTube channel where he discusses very, very interesting topics, sometimes AI based, sometimes not AI based. And you just find that, yeah, what, he knows his onions, right? He's trained over 40,000 individuals in branding, in marketing, and in storytelling. 40,000 people. 40,000 people. Just, let that sink in. And that's not consulting for a handful of companies, that's building movements, right? It's a shaping how thousands of entrepreneurs and leaders communicate their ideas. With 14 years of entrepreneurship, leadership across real estate, tech, and media, he's seen what stories work and what stories fall flat. He's witnessed which narratives inspire action and which inspire people to close the tab and move on, like ugh. So welcome, Dr. Aya. one of our closest and dearest friends and member of the Deep Funding community. Welcome, Dr. Ayo, to AI Deconstructed. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Miriam. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really excited that, I from the beginning, I don't think I've told you this, but from the beginning of this series, I always knew I was going to have you come on someday, but I just did not know how. And I'm, glad that this this has happened the way it has happened, right? And the entire series has progressed from very, very, I think I keep telling our listeners here, lovely listeners here, that we keep bringing brilliant people for you guys. We keep having these brilliant conversations, and I really love that we've gone from the technical to the non-technical, and now to the very, very crucial storytelling. So just a quick note to our audience: this is a open and um inclusive community, right? And we translate these values to conversations such as this. So please ask your questions. We encourage you to ask as many questions as you can and as you have. Really, Dr. Ayo is here for you. Just request for the microphone if you have a question, and then I'll pass the microphone right over to you. Or if you have like a comment or an insight or a shared experience you'd like to, tell us about, we really encourage you to do so. But let's also make sure that as we share, we do so as sensitively and as kindly and as warmly as we possibly can. Everybody's opinions matter, and everybody has a right of their own opinions. And we are just here to learn from each other and interact with each other. And I think the beauty of spaces such as this is that you get to come in with one idea or one perspective or one notion, and you can leave with like 10 more and see from many more lenses that you thought was possible. All right, so yeah, Dr. Ayo, over to you. My first question for you is going to be a little bit reflective, but I would like you to walk us through a moment when you saw a technically superior project lose to one that had inferior products but a better story. What happened?
Okay. Thank you so much, Miriam. I'm so glad to be here. All right. So I will drive straight into the answer to your question. But before I do that, I want to say that you see the big deal is not actually the storytelling. It's not actually the story or the storytelling. The big deal is what the storytelling does, right? And the bigger deal is how storytelling does what it does. And you know what is even really, 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 really mind blowing, and what I consider the biggest deal, is that no one is immune to it. There's no particular person who's going to say, "Oh, because I'm Homo sapiens and I'm intelligently superior, and because I have deconstructed all of these things right now, there is no way that storytelling works on me. I decide what I want to buy by myself with only logic, and I have never ever bowed to stories or to storytelling. There's just no one." Right. Now, the example I want to use, I want to be careful because I don't want to use tech. I don't want to use tech product for this particular question. I mean, maybe in the next questions, I'll start using tech examples because I don't want to say this particular product didn't do well, this did well, and things like that, right? Because the idea here is that we all, get it. The idea here is that we all know how wonderful storytelling is and why it is really, really important. Okay. So, I mean, I used to consult for real estate companies, and one time when I got this particular consult contract, but the first thing that I that I thought was, why do these people need me? Right? So imagine going to the company and then you find out that the company has everything that the company should have. Good projects, superior material using, competent workforce, enough of proof that they know what they are doing, because they have this number of estates, quite about 12 estates at the time, So when they even brought me up, but I was thinking, you don't even need me. Why do you need me? So it turns out that the competitor, who they were amazed and complain about, didn't even have half of the things that they have in terms of in terms of having superior quality, superior structure, organizational structure, superior work on ground and things like that. But the other guys were still outselling them. And that can be very frustrating, because you, as a product owner, your natural instinct, your first instinct is that if I make something good and I tell you that this is something good and I can prove it to you, that should be it. That should be all. I should not have to do anything other than that, right? Because what else do you want? I have made a product that makes your life easy. I have told you, I have showed you. Then what else is your problem? Why do you want to go why would you go for something more inferior? Why would you go for something less than I'm giving you? Why? And I realized that it was simple. It was not that this company that I was consulting for, it was not that they were doing anything wrong. It was that the other company that was outselling them was doing everything right. And it was basically storytelling. It was just a simple, they thought you would never buy real estate. It's a lie. You can get real estate. Right? So it was basically it was basically appealing to the emotion, to the fighting emotion in people, being underestimated. And the funny thing, everybody at one point in time would have experienced that, being doubted, being underestimated. In fact, people going to the length of telling you what you can achieve or what you cannot achieve, right? And so if somebody comes to say, look, we are the ones who will make sure that whatever these horrible people have told you about yourself, about you not succeeding in life, for example, one of the status symbols that you succeeded is that you are able to own real estate, maybe quite a number of them, right? And then so if the companies put out a story to say, look, we are going to make sure that you have real estate. Now, these people simply want to have real estate. They don't care whether it is superior product or whether the quality is the best ever. It is because they can find something to show for it that they have real estate. And here is a company who has particularly built a whole story around that. It's your time. It's your season. It's your turn to have. It's yours to have. Don't believe anybody else who says you cannot. And no matter if some class of people say real estate is theirs, is a lie, And it as simple as that sounds, it made all the difference. It made all the difference because, of course, if I was a young person starting to make maybe a few bucks in Abuja at the time, and I see that billboard, and that says that they've underestimated you for so long, now you can have your real estate, and I might just think, oh, that's true, right? It's true. I've already thought about myself about not being able to have real estate. Oh, that's true. And then I see the number, and then I call the number, and I say, oh yeah, we've been waiting for you. Come around our office. And they said, how much do you have to start your journey now? And the rest is history. Of course, when I got there, I thought to myself, there's no way to compete with this. We can't go exactly toe to toe with this. We have to find the superior story. And all that I had to do, or that I spent the bulk of my time doing there at the beginning, was to find what story could sell better than the story that the competitors were using, you know. And of course, the rest is history.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, thank you so much for sharing that. I love that it was something so, practical, right? And it's something we see in other advertisements and commercials we watch. There's a reason why we use certain cleaning products. There's a reason why we use certain painkillers, certain mattresses, even years on end. You grew up watching your parents use them, and now that you live alone as well, or you're starting a family of your own, those are the products that you've carried into your household because of all the commercials you watched and all the billboards you read and all the comics and stuff like that. And so, yeah, thank you so much for sharing such a practical example. It's really such a powerful example of the stakes here, and I think that it really hits something that we don't like to admit in technical spaces. I know that we can be very delusional in tech. We think that if we just get the software right, the rest will follow. We like to do oh yeah, just do your work, build the great products, um the better products, the great products will sell itself. Well, sometimes that might be true, yes, but it doesn't always work. The better product doesn't always win. So my next question for you would be this: why do we, especially in tech now, struggle so much with the idea that narrative matters as much as, or sometimes even more than, the actual technology? Why are we so fixated on product building and we forget that, or ecosystem building, and forget that narratives matter just as much?
All right. Thank you. Thank you so, so much. So I think it's because for the builder, for people in tech, we get all of the experience before we use the product. You know how they say that your brain does not know whether you are faking a smile or you are truly smiling, right? So it means that so it's quite interesting that if people smile because they're happy or something that, I mean, you smile because something is amusing, to you, so you smile. And then if something amuses you enough and you smile long enough, your brain releases good hormones, serotonins, endorphins, and all of those things. Okay. And then you feel really happy. And then you go and say, oh, wow, Miriam, thank you. I had such a nice time with you. I was just smiling all through and I felt really better and I felt relieved. Okay. However, science has come to show you, or show us rather, that if you just sit by yourself and you just fake smile, there's no Miriam in front of you that is amusing you. You are the one simply just smiling. That if you do that long enough, you will become happy, as though there was a Miriam that was there was a Miriam that was, in front of you and telling you all the jokes and telling you things, and then you're smiling, right? Now, how does this answer the question? So you tech people, when you are building a product, you've used the product. You have not literally particularly used the product, but everything everyone is supposed to feel when they use the product, you have felt it times and times again while you are building the product. And I said that not in terms of people who are building the product alone, but everybody also working on the product, being aware of the product, knowing what the product does, knowing how wonderful the product is. Even if you have not really used it or applied it to your life, you already have the satisfaction of the user. Now, so you usually will communicate to the user who has no idea about the product, who has no idea of the product. You would communicate to that user from that standpoint. And so it is simply a what you call, if there's anything called superiority complex position. That is to say, look at this wonderful thing, you better come and use it. Or look at this wonderful thing, come and use it. Do you think we can lie to you? Or look at these wonderful things that we've enjoyed and it's so wonderful, you'll be a fool not to use it. Right? Now that is very poor narrative because it has no empathy for the user and it has no understanding of where the user. Now, I'll wrap this answer up by simply saying that Look at your space where you live. I mean, look at your physical space. There are only three objects or three tools that you look at most all through the day, right? It is either your TV or your phone or your mirror. Scrap TV, scrap phone. Let's talk about the mirror. Why do you look at the mirror so much? Why? Because it shows you yourself. So narrative basically means helping people to see themselves. Usually, what we do as tech people, why we struggle with the fact that narrative is more probably the importance of narrative is because we feel like if we have the product, we should just tell people about the product. But we forget that people care only about themselves, as bad as it sounds. So it means that if you want to help, if you want people to use your product, you have to help them. And the way, the productive, efficient, effective way to do that is to not change them, is to simply help them do what they do naturally through your product. Basically saying, this is you. This is not our product. No. Look at this product. You will see you in this product. And I think that, so is human, that is psychology, and it's not digits, it's not ones and zeros, right? It's not logic. And of course you can't be a tech person without being logical. And then so when you are too logical, you lose the essence of, you forget that humans, we are not logical. There's nothing logical about humans. Yeah.
Wow, that was very profound. Narratives help people see themselves. And I think that's really, really profound. That's really powerful. And it's true what you've said about human beings. We really are invested in ourselves, right? We really are our own priorities. We want what makes us feel good, what makes us feel seen, what makes us feel protected. We think about ourselves a lot, and that's totally fine because the next person is also doing that. And the best stories are just stories that just help you. The best narratives are just narratives that just help you, you know so put up the mirror and say, you guys, like you've said, see yourself in this product. See, this is your pain, or this is your desire, this is your destination, this is your present state. All of the things that come into the framework of how we write stories and how we build stories. And yeah, that's really so profound. But then moving on to my next question. Okay, yeah, just a quick notice to the audience. If you have a question at any point in time, just request for the microphone and I'd pass it right to you. Dr. Ayo is here and available for all of your questions concerning technology and storytelling. All right, back to you. Now, when you're trying to explain decentralized AI to someone who has never heard of it, what's the biggest storytelling mistake you see people make in those first 30 to 60 seconds?
Okay, so this is quite interesting because I think it's the same issue with all of us. We are all very self-absorbed. Now, I know that you can come from the religious angle and say, yes, we should try to be better. We shouldn't be like that. Try to think about somebody else and all of that. I mean, if we were already like that, there won't be place for morals and religions. I mean, preaching love and all of that. So I think that the first thing is that we're all self-absorbed, and successful storytellers or marketers or successful founders or people who would drive adoption have to be the exact opposite of that. So what do I mean? So in the first 30 seconds, usually, I mean, say for example, you talk about the elevator pitch, you talk about pitching your business. Usually, all of us, without training, without what seems to be counterintuitive training, all of us, what we would instinctively do by default is to start trying to get that person to be interested in the product. you know so if you're saying decentralized AI, you just want to say, oh, AI is wonderful. and you should be part of AI, right? And that makes sense. But the thing is that if you're talking to me for 30 seconds, right, or the first 30 seconds, what I think is going to be most important to me in those first 30 seconds, however you can do it, is to convince me that you are thinking about me, not that you are thinking about yourself, or not that you are thinking about the decentralized AI that you want to tell me about. So if and of course, usually everybody just starts with, oh, there's this wonderful thing I want to tell you about. So before there is this wonderful thing first that I, me second, want to tell you about. That's literally the person that I'm talking to in the third position. I mean, I don't think nobody likes that. I mean, I'm sure you don't like being. Everybody likes to be the main character. Everybody likes to. So it takes practice, but that's the mistake. People want to talk about themselves or about the product. Whereas if you're able to, switch it to make it about the person, right? And then sometimes it's not even say you don't really need the person to buy into the product. What you need is you want the person to buy into you, and the only way, the effective way to do it is for you to show the person that you have bought into the person. Right? Exactly. So if I meet you, Miriam, on the way, I mean, take this. This is a very funny philosophical example. If I meet you, Miriam, on the way, and you tell me, and you tell me, Ayo, I want to buy, right? What am I likely going to say? I'm going to say, no, no way, you can't buy me. But if you say, Ayo, I want to give myself to you. I want you to have me for now. I may say, oh, how? Why? But definitely you have my attention. But if you say, I want to buy you, what you are going to have immediately is defense. It's going to be, no, you can't buy me. Why do you want to buy me? And then we fight and then we scatter. Whereas if you just want to end up in the same space, physical space with me, you've achieved that by you saying, you can buy me. And then I can say, no, I don't want to buy you. You are too expensive. And say, okay, can we work out something? All right, can we go somewhere, sit down and work out this thing? The point there is that what you've already achieved is that we are already together, which was what you actually wanted to achieve before. Now, you didn't buy me, but you've bought my attention, right? Because now I'm paying attention. And then, so I think that that's the mistake, what people do, focus on themselves and focus on the product. No, focus on the person you're talking to. Every other thing will follow, naturally.
That's incredibly profound. Focus on the person you're talking to, and every other thing will just naturally follow, right? It's important to buy the people, get people in to your own to the story that you're presenting, and not just, oh, it's like, yeah, why is this product, buy this product, versus, okay, so you, what's going on with you? I think the conversation just changes that way, and you've done such a brilliant illustration of what that really looks like with with that very funny example. Now, you'd find that there's a tension. I know we all know this, that there's a tension between being technically accurate and being understandable, right? We want to use the right words. We want to be as professional and concise and direct, and want to use the lingo, want to be as accurate as possible, but we also want other people reading to understand, other people listening to understand. Now, how do you, and I find that this is a very common struggle, and you'd see that people are really interested in learning about, let's say, Web3 and decentralized AI and stuff like that, but then white papers are so boring and so long and so technical. So how do you then tell honest stories without either oversimplifying what you're saying, or losing people in all that jargon?
All right. Thank you, Miriam. Such a very interesting question. So, I think that those are very valid concerns, to be honest with you. They are valid. And they only become valid when you have the people, right? Without the people, the question does not even come. You have to have the people before you worry whether this was oversimplified and therefore misleading, or have people worried that okay, the things I'm telling them, are they too technical? Are they losing interest? So usually it is, I find that it is a right. So it means that you must first travel to your audience. That is to say, you must first go and understand your audience. I'm not saying assume that you understand your audience, because assumption can feel like facts sometimes. Because I mean, if I have a product and I'm selling the product, and I can decide that my product can be bought by anybody who earns minimum wage in my country. And and as I can say, okay, my pricing was based on that. And it makes sense to me, right? But as much as it makes sense, that is still an assumption. It is an assumption because the person who is making minimum wage, for example, has a lot of things battling with their finances. So it is not just that they can afford what I sell. It is more like, are they willing to make the trade-off, because it is going to be so. I have thought about the cost. I have not thought about the opportunity cost. I've thought about what it will cost them in money. I have not thought about what they would not be able to have if they buy my product. Now, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because I'm trying to explain that once you understand your customer, or your prof, or I mean, you're able to profile your customer properly, then you will work your way back from them to you. Usually what we do is that we take it from us, the product owner, the founder, the company, the purporters and evangelists of decentralized AI, and we take it from ourselves and we try to go there. Whereas you should go there first and start the journey from there. So it means that you should walk with them all the way. So it basically means that at the beginning, I would not worry about oversimplifying, and I would not worry about if the jargons are too much. I would worry about what their problems are, and it is the language of their problem that I will discuss. So if you say it is a distributed compute framework with federated training, you know, that you can feel like, oh yeah, that's not too technical, and then that is not too diluted. Whereas if you say it lets normal people contribute to, or influence, or benefit from AI, not just the big companies, the question there will now be, oh, am I one of those normal people? And then, oh, yeah, I'm not. Okay, yeah. And then they can now say, okay, how can I contribute? So it means that it is meaning first that you must strive to pass across meaning. And then the mechanism, which is the jargons, which is the technicalities, which is using of right words, understanding, the in-depth understanding, will now follow meaning. And meaning, your meaning is useless. It is the customers, the end users' meaning, that is what is valuable. If that were not the case, we will not have computer language programs now. People will just, do you know how computer started? You have to read ones and zeros, and what changed the game for everybody was because Microsoft decided that, okay, we are going to use interface that people who cannot code can understand. You see? And that made all the difference. So the person really who can simplify and keep meaning would do way better than the person who feels like, I have technicalities and jargons to protect. I don't want it being watered down and things like that. So yeah, that's what
That's very interesting and very important for everyone to, yeah, I think something everyone needs to write down, right? Instead of focusing so much on all of that jargon, first think about, okay, let's get the people first. Let's understand from the people. And I think that people deceived by the idea of finality. Like I think that we many builders think if we don't get it 100 right now, or say it as perfect as possible right now, it can never be reviewed or improved. And that is just it's something I have experienced in work. And every time my response is, okay, but it can be reviewed and improved, right? Let's just start. Let's not focus so much on perfection and checking all the boxes. Some things would improve on the way, and I think that you've captured that really, really well. But now I want to ask a very important question, because I was thinking about this in the context of movies. Um, and for you, right, you've seen communities form around projects. You've seen communities rally around projects. You've led movements. You've been invested in pulling people into movements. And I'd like to ask about what role does the origin story, the why we started this, play in building that shared sense of identity and purpose? And this is what I mean when I was saying about movies, right? In a movie, we have, the antagonist and the protagonist, the villain, the hero. And when we say, let's say it's a series, it starts off on an interesting note. You're seeing the villains doing crazy things, and you already hate him, you already despise him, you're wondering why is he doing so terrible things. And then later on, somewhere in episode 5, they take you back to when he was 17, and you see his life as a teenager, and you see all of the complexities that formed the man that he was. And you begin to grow a bit of sympathy, and you begin to understand, okay, so it's not just a monster, he's a human after all. This led to this, and this led to that, and all of a sudden the villain is not so bad in your eyes. Or even the hero, you can really understand why this person is choosing, let's say, the side of good, and is not just doing the textbook way. And those are basically just my thoughts around this question. What role does origin stories play in building that shared sense of identity, where we're able to rally around movements and come into ecosystems and stay there?
So yeah, thank you, Miriam. Such an interesting question. When I started, I was saying that what I found to be like the biggest deal about stories or storytelling is that no one is immune to it, right? Now, people think that this concept of values, morals, people have this idea that it's just like really black and white, and so it's don't somebody who steals is a thief, and somebody who lies is a liar, and both are bad. And but we all never just stop to wonder why we are watching a robbery. You're watching a robbery movie and you're rooting for the thief. I mean, and you're rooting for the thief and you don't want the thief to be caught. Are you kidding me? Right? And we do it all the time. And it is because usually, which is what I've said, usually when the movie starts, which is like, say, for example, when your product starts, when your product launch, so when I say movie now, please just convert to the product launch or product in your mind, right? When the movie starts, the first thing that the movie does is allow you or make sure that you see yourself in that person that you can. Now, once you see yourself in that person, it now will never matter anymore what that person does. So if the person now decides to be a thief, now you are the thief who must not be caught. Now, this police who is doing his job and will not back down suddenly becomes the bad guy. Why do you want to catch this thief who is me? Who who had no choice in life but to just be this? I mean, why can't you back down? Is it so bad if you just allow me escape and things like that, right? Now, I also said at the beginning that maybe into the question, maybe I'll start to, mention maybe real tech product, because I mean, to be safe now. When we were, I'm sure a lot of people remember that there used to be this encyclopedia called Encyclopedia Britannica. Yeah, I think so. Yes, that's the name. We read it. It was quite detailed. It was just a very wonderful. And then here comes Wikipedia. Now, if you are writing on Wikipedia, nobody is paying you. You are volunteering to write there. If you are writing, publishing and editing for Britannica, is a paid position. Now, why do we still have Wikipedia, and why do we not have Britannica Encyclopedia as big as we had before? I'm not even sure we still have it, because it is because usually the origin story will give everybody and equip everybody with the, and you can go ahead and have a why, and then you can build the what, and then build the how, and you can build the when, you can build the how big, you can build it to what extent, on it. You can also decide not to do anything, and then the company fails. But every company that succeeds you will find out that they always have the why, which is what is embedded in the origin story. How did this come to be? Why are we all doing this? So if you're talking democratized AI, for example, or decentralized AI, you can say because if I am not careful, or because if I don't join this, because if I don't do this, there's going to come a time in life when I don't have anything or any say in any AI anywhere, right? And I don't want that to happen. And so why am I doing this? I'm doing this for my future. I'm doing this for posterity's sake. And if the company or the product drums that hard enough into my head, then I can build everything, right? But if you just remove that, it's like the foundation. So if you just remove that, I can't build anything. I can pretend to build anything. But when push comes to shove, I will find out that I could not do anything, because at every wind or at every test, I can just change my mind and say, oh, I was just fooling around. Without the why, we're all fooling around. So origin story, very important. Steve Jobs did it with Apple, built a whole community around identity. Rebels, defiant, if misfits, people who decide like, oh, what else? The misunderstood. And then suddenly everybody had to prove a point and say, yeah, you guys don't know who we are, what we are doing. We are going to show you. How are we going to show you? By using Apple. Now, tens and decades after that, people still come out to say, look, guys, you're just still buying Apple because of peer pressure. There are better phones for where nobody's answering anybody anymore. Nobody's answering anybody anymore. Because every time the people who use Apple, when they buy Apple, they're not buying a phone. They are subscribing to the identity, to their identity. They are subscribing to. How did it start? Origin story. We are the ones people don't understand. And this is our community. How do we know ourselves? This is how we interface with life. How do we interface with life? By using iPhone. Simple. Everything else from there.
That's very, very beautiful and very important as well. And I hope that it is something that people are able to really grab onto and begin to implement. We're almost out of time, but I'd like to throw open again to the audience. If you have a question or a comment or an insight you'd like to share, please request for the microphone and I'll pass it to you and you can ask away. We encourage questions here at Deep Funding because the only way we learn is by asking, right? Curiosity is great. Okay, so back to you, sir. I'd like to know though that how 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 then can the best decentralized AI projects turn their community members from users into storytellers themselves? I think that this might be a great way to even wrap this up. So not just being a member, the journey doesn't stop at getting people in. It moves on to making the people even soldiers for your war of sorts, in that kind of analogy. So how can we with the best decentralized AI projects granted, but how can we turn members into story?
All right. Thank you very much. So when you were asking the question, I started to think about how every time that I have tried to do that with projects that I was consulting for or things like that, it was always only a matter of time before you start to see the success. And I think it's quite simple. There are like a number of steps, generally speaking, but is the simplest way to represent what you need to do is to make whatever it is, whatever the product is to make it theirs, the people's, right? People, you would not have to beg me to defend my life. I mean, worst case scenario is that at least if I don't defend my life, I'll still protect it. I'll still run away with it, right? I'm not just going to stay there and allow somebody to do something to my life, right? So, but on a serious, on a more, on a more maybe authoritative level, or maybe on a stronger level, I probably want to fight somebody who wants to do something to my life, right? Why? Because I just owned it. And the funny thing is that I don't even remember exactly when it became mine. I mean, I just woke up to this word and I one time became conscious. And then over time, it just felt like this life was mine, right? And then, so I think that if you help people to truly believe that your product is theirs, you know and it comes back to everything I was saying. So you might think that this session is about storytelling. Oh yeah, it's about storytelling, but you see, it's actually more about helping people see themselves. And let me tell you what was interesting about that. You remember how Facebook came, and Facebook was a way to connect and things like that. Oh, that's fine. And then after some years, came Instagram. Instagram was so huge and so nice that with a staff of about 13 people, it was acquired for about $1 billion. Right? Now, what do you think was spectacular about Instagram? Do you know what the singular thing that was spectacular about Instagram? It was that on that app, you could see yourself better than you really looked in real life because of the filters, because of the things that you could do with your pictures. You could just make things better, you could just see better, you could just look better. And that singular thing, where people can see themselves and they can also help people see their lives getting better, make people feel like it was something that they should own, that it was theirs. And then, obviously, it was a no-brainer. Zuckerberg saw that, look, we just have to own this thing. And, went for it. So if you want to build a community and you want your community to become evangels, you have to invest everything into making sure that each person who is a user believes that the product is theirs. And the way to believe that the product is theirs is that the product, they can see themselves, very important. And then more important is that they can see themselves better. Now, what it means, this you can break that down into different things, right? The literal thing is you're looking at a mirror, but this time around the mirror has a filter and you're looking so nice. Okay. But it's most important is seeing how your product makes their life better in real time. I use this product today. I feel good about it. I have a feeling that if I use it tomorrow, I'll feel even better. And I see how this product makes my life better, empowers me, gives me more choices, gives me more options. Oh yeah, even if I don't directly evangelize, I'm going to evangelize maybe the way people who use Apple do, how people who use Apple will have this hair about themselves, like, I'm better than you. And if I move around people like I'm better than them, they're interested in what gives me that impetus to think I'm better than them, and they also want to go and get the same thing. So once again, you will be appealing to every single basic core human.
Yes, thank you so much. That was really, really lovely. I've taken down so many notes, and I'm just so glad that I am not just the host, I'm also a learner in this. And yes, as a As somebody who has used Apple devices for years now, you know what? I totally get it. I don't know why, but somehow I just find myself always using Apple. Except with laptops, though. That's a different conversation. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Wow, really, really profound, Dr. Ayo. Thank you so much. I know that if we take another question, I might overshoot the. All right, so one final question, I promise to you would be this. As decentralized AI matures, as it spreads, do you think that storytelling becomes more important or less important? And what stories do you think we need to be telling that we are not?
Oh, okay. That's about two questions. Okay, so I think storytelling is going to get even more important. To be honest with you, the fight has not even started, right? The fight has not even started, and the differences in the influence, we don't even have it yet. I mean, we are not seeing the differences yet in the influence. And so it basically means that this example came to my mind, and I'm trying to make sure it's appropriate, But here is the thing: if we were two boys, say for example two boys, and we had this we do sport in our school, and we have this coach who is just really a very horrible human being, right? The goal, what should be the goal of the two of us who are boys, would be to say, look, we have to be there for each other. We have to and then we would naturally agree and say, because that makes sense, right? That's this horrible coach. We are just the boys. So we should stick by each other, then we should protect each other, right? Very simple. All right. Now, I feel that that is where we are right now. We have all agreed that decentralized AI is good, but we are yet to be tested. So back to my example, what would a test look like? This is what a test would look like. A test would look like, say, for example, the coach calls this one of the boy A, and says, I heard that you and boy B, you guys are planning to defend yourself and stand for yourself. Look, let me tell you, I've been beating you for years. I can beat you. I can beat the two of you, right? But the fact that you guys even want to come together, you know what? You stay with me. I will no longer beat you, but I have a plan to beat the other boy. Don't tell him. Now, boy A has a choice, right? Boy A has a choice. The choice is to go stick with boy B and receive beating and fight until he is free, or simply go with this horrible coach and allow boy B suffer. Because, I mean, the goal there was, the reason boy B says let us stay together is so that I, boy A, can stop suffering and stop being beaten. But the coach is already offering me that. So maybe I can just let you suffer and be beaten, because, I mean, what you promised me that we are going to achieve, I'm already kind of achieving it, right? Now, what boy B would need is powerful storytelling to compel boy A to stick with the suffering of fighting this evil coach for the time being, so that they are both free. Now, I hope you got that, right? What it means is that we have not even begun, right? It's very soon, it is going to happen, that we really would need to do, massive storytelling. And to some question, to say, how should we have been using storytelling that we are not yet using? I think that the way we are yet to be using it actively is in practical sense, we don't have enough user generated content around decentralized AI. We don't have it yet. So that's in practical terms. In a more philosophical sense, it means that we are not yet aware of what we are up. Yeah. And you can't be an alarmist. You can't, you can't go about say. So that's one way that we should have been using storytelling that we are not using, because I mean this goes beyond money. This goes beyond having a tool. This is a total way of life. The ability to bend the truth, to sort and sieve and frame things in ways that can be damaging to the receiver. And then, it goes on and on. Very soon, I mean, obviously, you can see how the use of search engines are moved to the use of AI, right? So it basically means that what people call source of truth is gradually becoming only AI, right? And so the question will now be, whose truth will the AI that you use in future be telling you? Your truth or the product owner, that person's truth, or the universal truth? Yeah. So you see how we've not even started that at all. I'm not even sure we are aware, and things.
Yes, that's very interesting. I think that was a few days ago I was reading something on the subject of, truth and sources of truth. And really, now that I think about it, now that you've mentioned, we've really not scratched the surface of what storytelling could possibly do, because of there are so many moving parts that we might not really be seeing yet. And again, like you said, there's really no user generated content around decentralized AI. So there are many untapped stories in decentralized AI, and I think that's just the crux of the matter. The final part is there are many untapped stories, and the people who would get ahead are people who would learn to tap into those stories early on, while others are still catching on to the fact that, oh, storytelling could be a service, or it's a way of life, or it's part of culture, or it's not important, or it's more important. And all the debates that happen on Twitter, on Reddit, and every other social media platforms where we have this kind of conversations in tech. So yeah, thank you so much. So I think that's a great way to wrap this up. Thank you. This conversation has been a masterclass in something that is really, really important for many technical builders. And I hope that it's something that we stop undervaluing before it's too late. And what strikes me the most about today's discussion is that we've learned that storytelling in decentralized AI is not about manipulation, it's not about clever marketing, it really is about translation. It's about building um, a a bridge between what you've built and why anyone should care. Origin stories, right? Because technical capability and human impact, those that's where storytelling lives and thrives. And it's storytelling is also between, here's what this product does, here's what this software does, here's what this ecosystem can offer you, and here is why it matters to your life as a person, as a selfish human being, which, I mean, every other person is that selfish. So yeah, really, really profound words you've shared. You've given us such practical wisdom today, and I think that now for the builders who are listening or would listen to the replay, I think that would learn now better how to avoid the jargon trap, how to um buy uh, buy people or have people buy us in the first 30 seconds, how important it is that we get our origin stories right, and how important it is that we communicate them. And that very you've also shared really great practical wisdom around that very interesting line between inspiration and hype. I don't I don't know if anybody relates with me right now, but yeah, you've shared really practical wisdom, and I appreciate that you've reframed storytelling not just as something separate from the work, but something that's part of the work and is essential as every other part of the work. So yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Ayo. Again, really, everyone, something we can know is that whether you are a developer who is thinking the code will speak for itself, the software will do the work and the rest will follow. Um, or whether you're a researcher, who believes that technical papers are enough as long as you've gotten the documentation right, that's fine. Maybe if you're even a community builder or a community building enthusiast trying to articulate why your project matters, I hope that this conversation challenges you. I really do hope that it challenges you. I hope that you know better now why the best technology loses to the best story, and how, and knowing that it's not about a bug, it's not some random bug in how the world works. It really is just how the world works, is a feature of how our world works. Technology without story is just potential, really. And so, yeah, to everyone listening, remember that you might be building the future of AI, but if you can't tell people why that future is worth believing in, why they should give 2 cents, why they should care more than 30 seconds, somebody out there who's telling a better story will build it instead. And I don't, okay, I say in some spaces that we are not a people who waits for the future to happen. We are a people who creates that future. And creating the future that we want would require that we tell better stories. And so I think we can wrap this up here. Thank you so much for joining us, dear listeners, and our lovely Dr. Ayo for joining us here at Deep Funding, as we have come back to AI grades. Thank you for being a part of this, right? For listening, for sharing the space, for leaving a comment, for liking our tweets on, if you are part of our LinkedIn community too. Thank you so much for being here. We really are grateful. It's one thing to think of clever topics and bring on brilliant speakers. It's another thing for us to have an audience who's as loyal as all of you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And so, yeah, we are back. Keep building, keep telling your stories, and keep making sure that those stories are worth telling, and keep making sure that you are teaching other people how to be storytellers themselves, because really the future is going to be full of storytellers. I tell you, I kid you not. But yeah, until next time, I am your host, Miriam McQuarrie. I am a member of the events circle here at Deep Funding, and as always, it was my lovely, lovely pleasure to host you all tonight. And yeah, good night, everyone, and see you. Oh, okay, well, good day, and see you in the next one. Just keep your eyes peeled, your notifications on, so you can see when our next space is going to happen, and save to your calendar and be there, because our next speaker absolutely brilliant as well. So yeah, thank you all.